I had a roommate freshman year who was from extreme wealth. About 2 weeks into the semester, I walked in and found him throwing a perfectly good set of ceramic plates and bowls into the trash can. I asked him what he was doing, and he genuinely looked confused. He said, "They are dirty, I'm done eating off them." He thought you just bought new dishes every time you ate, because he had never once seen a dishwasher being loaded or unloaded in his life. I had to explain dish soap to him. I worked at a car dealership, and a father came in to buy his 16-year-old daughter her first car. He bought her a brand new, fully loaded Honda CR-V. It was a beautiful car. When she saw it, she literally dropped to her knees in the parking lot and started screaming and crying, not happy tears, angry tears. She shrieked, "I told you I wanted a G-Wagon. I can't be seen in this poor people trash." The dad just sighed and signed the papers, while she sat in his Mercedes refusing to look at the new car. My cousin dated a girl whose family owned a massive oil company. We went out to dinner at a casual burger place, think Applebee's level, because it was the only thing open late. She sat down, looked at the laminate menu, and asked the waiter, "Where is the wine list? I'd like to see your selection of vintage reds." When the waiter said they only had house wine in a box, she asked to speak to the owner to discuss their lack of standards. We had to leave because she refused to eat peasant food. I went to an art school with a girl who had never flown commercial in her life. For a study abroad trip, we all had to fly economy on a major airline. She spent the entire 8-hour flight pressing the call button, asking the flight attendants for things like freshly squeezed guava juice and a duvet. When we landed and had to wait at the baggage claim, she stood there waiting for a porter to get her bags. She honestly thought airport staff just collected your luggage for you and brought it to the hotel. A guy I interned with asked the boss on his second day when the company driver would be picking him up for lunch. We all laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He sat in the lobby for 45 minutes, waiting for a town car that never came. Eventually, he called his mum, screaming that the company was abusing him by forcing him to walk 2 blocks to a sandwich shop. He quit the next day because the working conditions were inhumane. I witnessed a meltdown at a grocery store checkout. A girl, probably about 20, was buying maybe $50 worth of snacks. Her credit card got declined. Instead of using another card or cash, she looked at the cashier and said, "Do you know who my father is? Just put it on his tab." The cashier explained that this is a Kroger, not a country club, and there are no tabs. She left the cart right there and stormed out saying she was going to have the cashier fired for theft. In college, I knew a guy who offered me $500 to iron a shirt for him. I told him I'd show him how to do it for free because it's a basic life skill. He watched me iron one sleeve, shook his head, and said, "No, that looks like labor. I don't do labor. My time is worth more than that." He ended up wearing a wrinkled shirt to the interview and didn't get the internship. He blamed the interviewer for not appreciating his authentic style. I used to be an RA in a dorm. A girl came knocking on my door at 3 a.m. crying hysterically. I thought someone had died. Turns out she had spilled water on the floor and didn't know how to clean it up. I handed her a towel and she looked at it with disgust. She asked, "Where is the maid? Does she not come at night?" I had to explain that there are no maids in college dorms. She actually tried to hire another student on the spot to wipe the floor for her. My wealthy friend decided to slum it by moving into a regular apartment complex after college, instead of the condo his parents bought him. He called me in a panic because the lights went out. He thought electricity was just included in the rent or just happened. He had never set up a utility account in his life. He asked me, "Who do I pay to turn the sun back on in my house?" He legitimately didn't understand the concept of a monthly electric bill. During a university group project, we needed some supplies, poster board, markers, glue. It came out to about $20. One girl in our group volunteered to go buy it, but said she needed petty cash from us first. She asked everyone for $50 each. We asked why she needed $200 for markers. She said, "Well, I have to take an Uber Black there and back, and I'll need to get lunch while I'm out." She expected the group to fund her transportation and sushi lunch just to buy glue. I work at a gas station. A young guy in a convertible pulled up to a pump and just sat there honking his horn for 2 minutes. I finally went out over the intercom and told him to pump his gas. He came storming into the store, face red, screaming that he was ready for service. I told him it's self-service. He threw his keys on the counter and said, "Fine, fill it up with premium, boy." I told him if he didn't move his car, I was calling the tow truck. He had no idea how to operate the pump. My ex-girlfriend's brother crashed his brand new BMW because he was texting. It was totally his fault. He came home and told his dad, expecting a scolding. Instead, he complained that the airbag hurt his face and that the other driver, who he hit, was in the way. He demanded his dad sue the other driver for emotional distress. The worst part, his dad actually called a lawyer to see if it was possible. They truly believed the road belonged to them. I had a student who failed a midterm. He came to my office hours, not to ask for help understanding the material, but to open his checkbook. He sat down, clicked his pen and asked, "Okay, let's cut to the chase. How much for a B+? I don't need an A, just enough to keep my parents off my back." When I told him that's bribery and could get him expelled, he laughed and said, "Everything is for sale, Professor. Don't be naive." I reported him immediately. A girl I worked with at a clothing store was shocked when she saw her first paycheck. She came into the break room holding it and asked, "Who is FISA and why did they take so much of my money?" She thought the salary offer was exactly what landed in her bank account, tax-free. She spent the rest of the shift Googling how to sue the government for theft on her phone instead of folding clothes. I went on a camping trip with a group of friends, including one very wealthy guy. He showed up with nothing but a credit card. When we got to the campsite in the middle of the woods, he looked around and asked where the concierge was so he could order room service. He thought camping meant staying in a wooden cabin with a butler and a hot tub. He slept in his Land Rover that night because he refused to sleep in a tent on the ground. I knew a girl who bought a brand new laptop because her old one ran out of battery. I wish I was joking. She didn't have her charger with her on a weekend trip, and instead of borrowing one or buying a new cable for $20, she went to the Apple store and bought a whole new MacBook Air. She said it was just easier than dealing with the wires. The wastefulness was absolutely mind-boggling. My roommate in college asked me where I kept the fresh towels. I told him they were in the closet, but he had to wash his own when he used them. A week later, I found a pile of damp, mouldy towels festering in the corner of his room. He said he was waiting for the exchange service. He thought that, like a hotel, someone would just come by, collect the dirty ones and leave fluffy white folded ones on his bed every morning. A rich friend of mine decided to cook dinner for us to prove he was down to earth. He bought the most expensive steaks and truffle oil. He then proceeded to put the steaks in the microwave for 10 minutes. When they came out grey and rubbery, he threw a tantrum and blamed the microwave brand. "This is a cheap appliance. My oven at home talks to me." He ordered $300 worth of takeout pizza to replace it. I was a counsellor at a sleepaway camp. A camper arrived with 3 massive trunks. When we told him he had to make his own bed, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "My hands are insured for playing piano. I cannot risk injury by tucking in sheets." He then tried to pay another 10-year-old camper $20 to make the bed for him. The kid took the money, made the bed, and the rich kid slept on top of the covers all week so he wouldn't have to make it again. I watched a girl have a breakdown in a parking lot because her key fob battery died. She couldn't unlock her car remotely. I walked over and showed her that there is a physical key hidden inside the fob and a keyhole on the door handle. She looked at me like I was a wizard. She said, "I thought only poor people used metal keys. Doesn't that scratch the paint?" She was 22 years old. I worked in IT support at a university. A student came in with a smashed laptop screen. He said he dropped it because his backpack was too heavy. He demanded we give him a loaner laptop, but not just any loaner. He wanted a specific colour to match his outfit for a presentation later that day. When we said we only had standard black Dells, he threw the smashed laptop on the floor and said, "Keep your trash. I'll just have my dad FedEx me his." I once dated a guy who suggested we go to Paris for the weekend. I told him I couldn't afford a plane ticket to France on 2 days' notice. He looked confused and said, "Just put it on your parents' miles." I explained my parents didn't have miles and certainly didn't fly to Europe. He genuinely couldn't grasp the concept that most people can't just hop across the Atlantic on a whim. He ended up going alone and texted me pictures of baguettes the whole time. A co-worker of mine, fresh out of a prestigious private school, couldn't figure out the office coffee machine. It was a standard Keurig. She called me over and asked, "How do I tell it what I want?" She thought it was voice activated. After I showed her the buttons, she wrinkled her nose and said, "You mean I have to touch it? Do we have sanitary gloves?" She started bringing a Starbucks runner every morning just to avoid the germy buttons. At a university dining hall, a student started screaming at the lunch lady because they were out of sushi. He shouted, "Do you know how much tuition I pay? I pay your salary. If I want a spicy tuna roll, you should go catch the fish yourself if you have to." The manager had to escort him out. He later wrote a scathing letter to the dean demanding a refund on his tuition because the culinary experience was substandard. I had a roommate who refused to take the trash out to the dumpster. She would just pile the bags by the front door inside our apartment. When the smell got bad, I told her it was her turn. She said, "I don't do dumpsters. Those places are for rats and homeless people. I'm not risking my health." I ended up moving the bags to her bedroom door. She moved out the next week, claiming I was bullying her. I saw a guy in his 20s at a laundromat. Clearly his washing machine at home broke. He put the detergent in the dryer, not the washer, the dryer. When the clothes came out warm but still dirty and covered in blue slime, he kicked the machine and yelled, "This public technology is garbage!" He left a pile of designer clothes sitting there and just walked out, probably to go buy new clothes. My friend's sister got a job as a receptionist. She quit after 3 hours. Why? Because they asked her to refill the water cooler jug. She called her mum crying, saying, "They want me to lift things. I'm a receptionist, not a construction worker." It was a standard 5-gallon jug. She felt that manual labour was degrading to someone with her background and education level. I was at a party where a girl complained for an hour that her parents got her the wrong colour horse for her birthday. She wanted a white stallion, and they got her a dapple grey. She kept saying, "It ruins the aesthetic of my Instagram photos. I can't post this horse." Everyone was looking at her like she was insane. Most of us were struggling to pay rent, and she was crying over the colour tone of a pony. A wealthy student in my history class raised his hand during a lecture on the Great Depression and asked why didn't they just use their credit cards if they didn't have cash. The professor stared at him for a solid 10 seconds of silence before asking if he was serious. The kid shrugged and said, "I mean, it's just logical. Money is digital." He had zero concept of poverty or debt.